Hello folks, this is Steve A.B4L. Now you know, nothing in this episode is a promotion nor is it a recommendation, and one of the places I look at every day is Slashdot.org. News for nerds. I want to show you something. Now, I want to see if I can do something. I saw a headline earlier. I want to have some fun. So we'll just scroll down the stuff. Windows 11 hits 30% market share for the first time. Do you know how many tens of millions of computers have to be thrown away and new ones bought in order to switch to Windows 11 because of the Silicon Valley parents are sending kindergarten kids to AI-focused summer camps. You mean they're not sending them to coding camps anymore? See, it was those coal miners that are going to be put out of work. They need to learn to code. Oh, no, that's right. Everybody is literally laying off tens of thousands of developers, code writers. The big thing is how to use AI, right? That's what that's about. But that's not what this video is about. Oh, this is a good one. Design flaw has Microsoft Authenticator overriding multi-factor authentication accounts, locking users out. Oh, Microsoft! The geniuses that know how to write secure code. No, that's not the one. I read it. I thought it was kind of interesting in how utterly stupid their developers are. Oh, no, let me get the main point here for you. Yeah, actually, it's good. It'll be a good example of what I'm going to show you. Multi-factor authentication. You know, they're moving to, you don't put in a password anymore. Something on your computer, your iPhone, your whatever, your Android phone, it actually does the handshake and, oh, you're okay to get into this account. That way, the bad boys can't steal your password because it isn't password. It's your device that authenticates you. So these people found a design flaw in Microsoft Authenticator that causes it to often overwrite authentication accounts when a new user adds a new one via a QR scan. So you go to a new place, and in order to talk your thing, to talk with, they put up a QR code on the browser, and your camera looks at. But because of the way the resulting lockout happens, the user is not likely to realize the issue resides with Microsoft Authenticator. Instead, the company issuing the authentication is considered the culprit, resulting in wasted corporate help desk hours trying to fix an issue that company's not making. The core of the problem? Now here's the part I liked. And I do mean, how stupid can those people at Microsoft be? The core of the problem? Microsoft Authenticator will overwrite an account with the same username. Oh, you mean you would have to have a different username every place you go? Instead of like being Steve A.B4L on X and on Meta and on... What? Why? Why not? Wait a minute. Given the prominent use of email addresses for usernames, yeah, there's a lot of places the way I log in is because of even with Google. Actually, when you put in your username, it's an actual Gmail address. SteveAB4L at implied gmail.com. Given the prominent use of email addresses for usernames, most user apps share the same username. And Google developers, the geniuses that they are, didn't really think it through, did they? Because you use it to go to Meta, and then the next time you're going to use that Microsoft app to create another authentication, it just says, we'll write over the one from Meta in order to go to X, and now you can't go to Meta because it destroyed that. You got it? Did you get it? Is this a security issue? No, of course it's a security issue. It's about how to write secure code. You can write secure code that isn't really secure by some kind about the compiler's got bugs in it, or you can just get the design wrong at the user level. But let's get back to what I was going to show you. Now keep this one in mind. So we scroll a little further, and now we get this one, and it's about Microsoft again. Every Microsoft employee is now being judged on their security work. Microsoft is making security its top priority, and employees will now have to start delivering. Microsoft made it clear earlier this year that it was planning to make security its top priority. Is that a link? There's something about the CEO saying it. Following years of security issues and mounting criticisms. They must have anticipated the CrowdStrike Azure interaction fall on your ass and nobody can recover in a split second. That was a security issue too. You see, just as they didn't think through the MFA overwrite the same email name used as a username, somewhere back there about how you allow CrowdStrike to actually operate down in the kernel, and then when you get a blue, it can actually cause a blue screen of death. Well, actually regular code can cause a blue screen of death, but the point is that when you restart the machine, it does it again and again and again and again, whereas an ordinary one caused by a program running not in the kernel, the next time you reboot it, that program is not restarted, so there is no repeat blue screen of death. But Microsoft must have not have thought about the implication of allowing crowdsource to actually park itself all the way down in the secret high priority kernel of Windows itself. Everyone at Microsoft will have security as a core priority, says this chief people officer. When faced with a trade-off, the answer is clear and simple: security above all else. A lack of security focus for Microsoft employees could impact promotions, merit-based salary increases. I've worked in companies where half the salary was meeting the objectives. The base salary was half of what you could make. And I'm not just talking, when I worked for a big chemical company years ago, the chemists, the PhD chemists, had to meet the objectives of their research plans in order to double their base salary each year. Do you understand how I said that? That's how much was at stake. Let's say they were making $30,000 a year. Their salary could actually, their payout could be actually $60,000. It isn't just that, nothing new. Delivering impact for the security core priority will be a key input for managers in determining impact and recommending rewards. That's the new policy. But I'm an old fart. Now let me see if the search engine can remember. It's August 6, 2024. Bill Gates asks all employees to take one day to check Windows code for security. Do you think the AI engine understands that? Let's go to Microsoft.com Security Blog 2022, January 21st. Oh, is that Bill Gates? Oh, no, that's by Anshul Gupta. Excuse me. Corporate Vice President and Deputy CISO. All right, it's two authors, and the second one looks like he's probably a Nigerian. I can't pronounce the name. I'm not used to. There's a lot of Indian classical family names that are this long, and I can't pronounce them either. Okay, January 21st, 2022. 20 years ago this week, this is Microsoft. I didn't look this up ahead. I knew that the search engine would remember. 20 years ago this week, Bill Gates sent a now famous email to all Microsoft employees announcing the creation of the Trustworthy Computing Initiative. The initiative was intended to put customer security and ultimately customer trust at the forefront of all Microsoft employees. 20 years ago. Gates' memo called upon teams to deliver products that are as available, reliable, and secure as standard services such as electricity, water services, and telephoning. Now, that's the first paragraph, and then for this thing they get off into saying where they are. Now, this is in January 2022. This is 2.5 years ago. Protecting customers is core to Microsoft's mission. Dedicated red and blue teams, 24/7 security operations centers. Da 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 da. In 2003, 20 years ago, we consolidated our security update process into the first Patch Tuesday. Patch Tuesday has become famous for breaking Windows. Patch Tuesday has become famous for breaking Windows by doing the updates on the day they're available. Breaking Windows. In this past year, I can remember they went on for 4 or 5 months that it screwed up the printer service. Oh, well, that wouldn't affect my printer at home. What it did is it screwed businesses that have all kinds of printers to do customer receipts and all that kind of stuff. You know, when you, oh, you mean at banks and stuff like that? Here's an article from Wired, Bill Gates' Trustworthy Computing, January 17, 2002. So this is an article still online from the year 2002. This is the email Bill Gates sent to every full-time employee at Microsoft, in which he describes the company's new strategy emphasizing security in its products. Oh, I see. If I want to read it, oh, well, there it is. There it is. Here it is. Here it is. Now, oh, all right, I can just do that. All right, we got it. I figured it out. So this is Bill Gates speaking. To Microsoft and subsidiaries, all full-time employees, FTE. Subject, trustworthy computing. Every few years, this is Bill Gates. This is Bill Gates. Every few years, I have sent out a memo talking about the highest priority for Microsoft. The year is January 15th, 2002, 2 years after the K2000 fiasco. 2 years ago, it was the kickoff of our .NET strategy. Before that, it was several memos about the importance of the Internet to our future. And so that'd be in the 1990s. And the ways we could make the Internet truly useful for people. Over the last year, it has become clear that in ensuring .NET is a platform, .NET is their platform for creating Windows programs. Instead of doing it in C, they gave a structured support way with a lot of, you just plug it in and call up it so you don't have to write a lot of new code. You only write code for your idea, not a lot of code figuring out how to do it in Windows. Over the last year, it has become clear that ensuring .NET is a platform for trustworthy computing is more important than any other part of our work. If we don't do this, people simply won't be willing or able to take advantage of all the other great work we do. Which means there must have been really terrible problems in that new IDE. That's what it's called. .NET is a flavor of what's called an IDE. Something development environment. Trustworthy computing is the highest priority for all work we are doing. We must lead the industry to a whole new level of trustworthiness in computing. Doesn't that sound high? Oh, it's wonderful. Now, I know who that guy is. He's a YouTuber. There's a lot of excitement about what this architecture, .NET, makes possible. It allows the dreams about e-business that have been hyped over the last few years become a reality. It allows blah, 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 blah. It's even more important than any of the new capabilities is the fact that it is designed from the ground up to deliver trustworthy computing, which it didn't. What I mean by this is that customers will always be able to rely on these systems to be available and to secure their information. Against what? You think there weren't hackers back then? That's what he's talking about. Oh, yes, he meant that it won't crash unexpectedly. Yes, he meant that too. But there were viruses back then, and they called them that. Now, here's an idea. Think about the CrowdStrike thing that happened a week and some ago. Think about the CrowdStrike thing as I repeat his words from 2002. Trustworthy computing, which is what he said Microsoft has to really become, is computing that is as available, reliable, and secure as electricity, water services, and telephony. Today, in the developed world, we do not worry about electricity, except if you're in Texas and it's so hot it's incredible and they can't generate enough electricity, and then major cities go down, major parts of major cities go down for a week and 10 days or more with no electricity, and all the stuff rots in their home refrigerators. Oh, did that just happen last month? And last year? Electricity and water services being available with telephony. Remember, this was really before. We rely both on its availability and its security for conducting highly confidential business transactions without worrying that information about who we call or what we will say will be compromised. Are you kidding me? The events of last year, which would be 2001, 9/11, from September's terrorist attack, 9/11, to a number of malicious and highly publicized computer viruses. There were a number of, I read Bleeping Computer every day, and there's half a dozen to a dozen that they're reporting on. New ones, major ones, big ransomware. How do they get into all those Windows systems to encrypt the files? You mean those systems are running Windows? No, Bill Gates said we're going to make this the most secure platform ever in 2002. I don't need to go on, do I? Every week there are reports of newly discovered security problems of all kinds of software, from individual applications and services to Windows, Linux, Unix, you know what Unix is, and to other platforms. He doesn't want to mention Apple. We've done a great job. So he goes on to really define it. In recent months, we stepped up programs and services to help us create better software, We're training all our developers in the latest secure coding techniques. We've also published books like Writing Secure Code, which give all developers the tools they need to build secure software from the ground up. In addition, we have even more highly trained sales, service, and support people. along with offerings such as security assessments and broad security solutions. I encourage everyone at Microsoft to look at what we've done so far and think how they can contribute. But we need to go much further. This is in 2002, January, a few months after 9/11. So now we face a choice between adding features, Windows 11, and resolving security issues. We need to choose security. What's the memo that just came out? When faced with a trade-off, the answer is clear and simple. Security above all else. And that's 2024. I think he had an earlier one than this, about take a day and look over the code. See, it didn't understand what I was saying. But the memo from 2002 is a perfect example of, it's a long, hard process. See, it was headline news. The more things change, the more they stay the same. Do you get it? Do you understand? The more things change, the more they stay the same. Do you think AI is going to solve this problem? By sending your kids to AI boot camp when they're kindergartners? One final thought, and it's to put this in kind of a lot of new scientific breakthroughs in what eventually becomes like technology, whether it's computers or DNA work. I was in college and I met one of the earliest DNA sequencers from England. He came to visit us in FIX-174. FIX-174 bacteriophage is a single-stranded DNA virus that infects E. coli that's in your gut. The virus was isolated in 1935 by a certain guy at the Pasteur Institute. The bacteriophage has a sense circular single-stranded DNA. It's a single-stranded DNA virus rather than being a single-stranded RNA virus with 5,386 nucleotides. And as you can see in this diagram, it's really small and it had to encode several protein genes. And one of the unique things about it is that it was coding genes within genes. And that's what this diagram shows. See, the yellow is a gene coded in, and then there's K and B, and then there's Z, and there's these different genes, like this one over here, F, and this one over here, H, and this one, G. You notice there's nothing else overlapping it. And somehow, evolutionarily, this extremely small single-stranded DNA virus managed, because it didn't have enough nucleotides, managed to have some smaller genes encrypted within the bigger ones by reading in the opposite direction. And I actually met the person who did that discovery. Now, I'm taking you back to the very beginning of DNA sequencing and genomics by doing artificial. So this was in the 1980s. And so for COVID, we use messenger single-stranded viruses manipulated as the actual messenger RNA, not antibodies, to be injected into us, into our cells, that then would let them work like a virus and produce the products that are encoded, like they're encoded in the 5X174, and then our body will see those as alien and make antibodies against them and protect us from severe COVID. But to get from what this guy was doing and the primitive technology of DNA sequencing at that time, early 1980s, to get to being able to design and manufacture on a large scale, was it 10 years later, 20 years later, 30 years later? Well, let's make it 1983. 93, 203, 13, 40 years to get true maturity of our new emerging technology. How old is Windows? Let's treat that as a technology. How old is the attempt to make secure Windows? Is it 10 years old? It's 20 years old. It's got another 10 to 20 years going before it will mature sufficiently to actually call itself secure. Do you follow what I'm doing? And you can go in, think about the evolution of automobiles. There were thousands of startups to make automobiles back at the year 1900 worldwide. How many brands are there today? And in just 40 years, 99% of them dropped out, and it still left a small crowd. 40 years. How about airplanes? Right here in North Carolina, some Ohio bicycle mechanic boys come down here to the Outer Banks to fly for the first time. Powered flight, 1905. By World War II, how many years later was that? By the closing days of World War II, 1945, Super Fortress. Big engine things, drop huge loads, drop a nuclear weapon. How long did it take to actually develop enough about quantum physics and atomic physics to be able to build a bomb? When did that stuff start? Did it start 10 years before? Theoretical physics? 20 years? 30 years? 40 years? So what's my message to you? I'm not off the topic. This is all bullshit, but they have to do it along the 40-year journey, and they're only 20 years out. Got it? That's what I'm saying here. I'm not making fun of him. I'm not making fun of him back then. But the reality is 40 years. Steve A.B. Fouriel, just an idiot running his mouth, having fun, saying see you in 73.